Welcome to our 5 on 5. I'm joined today by Pacific Power's Vice President of Operations, Allen Berreth. Allen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, Allen, utilities have often been blamed with starting some of the West's biggest fires. What is Pacific Power doing to mitigate the risk of starting fires this summer?
You really have to start this conversation with looking at weather. We've seen some extreme weather in the last few years, and whether that is the wildfire activity we've seen heat domes, we've seen ice storms, we've seen snowstorms in April. And the wildfire mitigation plan really takes a look at reducing wildfire risk. Pacific Power filed their wildfire mitigation plan in December of last year, and a large component of that is system hardening. That wildfire mitigation plan represents $500 million of investment between now and what we've been working on the last couple of years, all the way out to 2028.
Okay. And so, Allen, how do you prioritize what areas of your system to focus on? I imagine you have potentially millions of miles of power lines.
That's a great question, because the fundamental part of a wildfire mitigation plan is situational awareness, a risk modeling, where we have to take a view of our entire service territory and take a look at where is the elevated fire risk. And that's what we've done. We've identified areas of our service territory. So in Oregon, that predominantly is in Southern Oregon. You're talking the Medford area, Grants Pass area, up into Roseburg, which is identified fire high risk areas. And this is areas that have been prioritized for this system hardening, where that work starts. Once we're completed in those areas over the coming years, we'll look to expand into other parts of our service territory.
What other new technology are you using to safeguard power lines?
Right. So whereas the rebuilding of lines and installing new equipment is the most visible component of the wildfire mitigation plan, there is a large component that's behind the scenes that you don't see. It's not out in the field. And that's where Pacific Power has been investing in meteorology, in data scientists, where we've been adding that skill set to internal departments where we can take this view of situational awareness and really increase our weather forecasting capabilities, coupled with a data analysis of outage history, so that we can really understand weather that impacts our system on a very granular level, on down to the circuit level.
Got it. Okay, well, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll have much more with Allen in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back to our 5 on 5. I'm joined today by Pacific Power's Vice President of Operations, Allen Berreth. Now, international brownouts are uncommon in the Rogue Valley. I'm not sure we've had one in recent years. In fact, does Pacific Power plan to intentionally shut down power this fire season if conditions call for it?
So, public safety power shutoffs, or de-energizing the system ahead of weather conditions, is a part of our wildfire mitigation plan. So in these identified elevated fire risk areas, we have a public safety power shutoff program, which not only involves de-energizing if conditions get there as like a tool of last resort, but that program also involves proactive work with the communities and local emergency management. Because really, when we get into those conditions, we really want to make sure we're well coordinated with the community. We want to make sure that everyone understands what that would look like, what steps lead up to a de-energization, which includes notification of our customers, notification of local emergency management, and collecting their feedback. What's going on in that community? Because we want to make sure if we get to the point where we're de-energizing power, that we are balancing the risk of reducing that wildfire risk versus the risk of not having power in a community might create.
Got it. Thank you. Now, Allen, the Oregon Public Utility Commission recently adopted new rules for consumers to get better notice when Oregon utilities shut down power during wildfires. What kind of notice can our viewers expect this season if that happens?
Part of our program, we want to provide as much notice as possible to our customers and to communities about the potential for a de-energization. And so as we see that weather approaching, as much time as we can give to our customers, say 72 hours out, 48 hours out, we might do outbound calling to the impacted customers to let them know that we're watching conditions. If those conditions continue to elevate, we would do additional notification about in 1 hour, the power will be de-energized, and also where to seek additional information, such as where would the customer resource centers be, which would be areas inside the community where we would set up a shelter people can go to get out of the hot weather, recharge their phones. Services like that are also available to customers. We do have to remember that we are talking about forecasting the weather, so sometimes advance notice isn't possible, but we would still do that outbound calling as soon as we know what steps are being taken.
Got it. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us tonight and sharing all this information with our viewers. Allen.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll be right back.